Everybody. Welcome to Drawing Techniques with me. I'm very excited to be here again. Welcome back for those of you that did our session last week. And if you're here new to this week, don't worry. You don't need to have been here last week. We're going to just, I will be sharing with you a little bit of recap on what we did last week, but you can jump right in where we're at and it'll be good. And next week, for anybody that's interested, we will be doing the face. I will be showing you some really interesting techniques with how to draw the faces. If you would like to come to that one, if you're not already signed up, please register. And also, when you come to that one, if you would like, please bring a photo or have a photo available of somebody, a very nice clear photo of them, because we're going to be doing some measurements and we're going to be doing some drawing. And I will have a reference here, but it's also really nice to have a reference where you were at, so you can practice on a face. You can take a look at it. You can explore the measurements and what we're going to do next week. So that's on for next week. Also, before I get started, there is a survey that you can take to give feedback to the library about how these lessons are going. And so we'd appreciate if you wanted to take that survey. If you have any questions for me during this session, there is a little chat button at the bottom of your Zoom class, and you can type a question in, and Sarah Stevenson is that, I think I have that name right. She is monitoring this, and she can ping me and let me know that somebody has a question and I can answer it. So don't feel like you just have to sit there and wonder what I'm doing or how to make it better. If you have a question, you can go ahead and chat it in there and ask, and hopefully I can answer that. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to just show you some of the tools that we use. And first thing right off the bat is the pencil, right? And if this is all you have, which is a number 2 pencil, perfect. Very easily transported anywhere you want. It may or may not have an eraser, right? And so if you do not have an eraser, make sure you have one. I use a kneaded eraser, and but any eraser will work. I will be using, you'll see in my hand today, an art pencil, and it does not have an eraser on the end. It is a number 2 as well. I do have a number 4 in my hand. I might use that. If you have one of these, you can use the darker color. The number is a 4, so that just means it gets darker. So I have those pencils. I also have a blendy tools. The blendy tools that I use are these. They come in a little packet. You can get them at Hobby Lobby. I think you can get them at Walmart and at Michael's. And now they're open. You can actually go into the stores. So that's kind of fun. I went to Michael's the other day and just wandered because I was very happy to be among art equipment again. It was very fun for me. Anyway, so I have a blendy tools here, but if you do not have blendy tools, well, a finger works really well. Or Q-tip works really well too. So if you have a Q-tip, notice I used that last week. So it already had some on it, and you can use it to just blend out. So those work really well. So those are, and then just paper, whatever paper that you have. These are some of the things that we talked about last week. So I just want to quickly go over them. Just making sure that when you take your pencil in your hand, it's nice and loose. It's not real choked up. It's not, you're not trying to do something really tight. When we do detail work, that's when you can choke up and you can get in there and you can do some dot work or some line work. That's perfect. I mean, you can't really even hardly see that. That's why I choke up, and I can do that. But when I'm going loose and I'm putting in a picture and I'm looking at the basic shapes and I'm looking at the lines and how they intersect and I'm working on composition, I'll go really loose. I'm about an inch or so here, and I'm working with my whole arm, not just my wrist, okay? Wrist movement is good if you want to do that, right? But if you want to get some really good line work in, use your shoulder, use your whole arm, okay? And then what we're going to work on today is an extension of what we talked about last week, and that is that lines tell the story. Organized lines tell a story. This one is unorganized and these lines are organized, and I can tell better what this might be. You know, some cliff sides with a river running through it, rather than some scribbles. So lines always tell a story. So we're going to talk about organizing our lines today. Okay. And we'll be working more on shadows and shading. And you may draw all the time. You may know exactly how to draw, but I think all of these are really fun to just keep practicing and getting better at. So if you've already done a lot of drawing, all these things I'm going to say you may know, but just to practice them again and again is very helpful. So we're going to work with, so when I outline this, I'm using my basic shapes to give myself this shape, and I'm outlining it, right? So I've done an outline here, which tells a story. I know it's a can, but this right here, I'm working on edges, if you'll notice. And edges work when you take away the outside lines. These are outlined, looks like a cartoon. And unless you're going for a cartoon, which we're not today, we're not doing cartoon, we are working with shading to get rid of those edge lines. So you'll notice the only lines that you see here are going to be your contour detail lines. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about more today, is those contour and those detail lines. But I really want you to work on not having outlines. I want you to work on edges. So even though yours has a shape to it, I want you to emphasize that shape by adding edges by the shading, and we'll work with that. Okay, I'm going to get more into the outlines and the edges and the contour lines, but first we're going to tackle this grid right here. And I am going to give you an amazing tool that you can use while decorating a home, hanging up pictures, putting pillows on a bed, interior design work, maybe even landscaping work, drawing, painting, sculpting, any kind, flower arranging. And when you, any of those, I've got a bee somewhere in here. Okay. Wow. Okay. I have a bee right above me. Oh, well, we'll have to ignore it. Okay. So this is what I'm going to teach you today. The power of three. And so we're going to talk about that in terms of composition and how to lay out a picture, and also in terms of how many things you put in a picture, how many things that you put on a bed, how many pillows you put on a couch, or how do you landscape your beautiful flower garden. And this power of three is an odd number, right? So odd numbers always are going to work best for us when we do art. What odd numbers do is they're off balance, right? So they take us into a picture and we can move our eyes around the picture and it fills the space a little bit more comfortably than if you even everything up, okay? And the only exception to that, obviously, is if you're going to do one item, but that's still an odd number, right? Odd number. I love the power of three, and I'll remember that because we're going to take apart this picture or this piece of paper. Let's say I have a piece of paper right here, and I lay it on my desk, and I'm going to draw anything I want. Today we're going to do a seashell. So I'm going to say, okay, where's my seashell going to go? And do I want one seashell? How many seashells do I want? Well, I only want one. That's a good odd number. So I'm going to place this seashell smack dab right in the middle, right? Wrong. So we never place anything right smack dab in the middle. we are going to use the power of 3 when we set out our picture. And that is, we lay everything on a line of thirds. So taking your, you can pretend that it has a grid on it. This is 1/3 of the paper vertically, 1/3 of the paper there vertically, and then here's 1/3 of the paper horizontally and 1/3 down here horizontally. So I am just going to, and you don't have to draw this every time. If you want to give you some reference, that always helps. But you can mentally picture breaking it up to thirds. So when you start putting down a picture, whatever it may be, you can follow these third lines, okay? So for instance, well, we'll do the seashell in just a minute, but let's say I wanted to do landscaping. So where do I want my ocean to be? I think I want to see more of the waves than I do the sky. So I would place my horizon line somewhere up here. Okay, so my horizon line would be right up here so that I can get the full effect of all these beautiful wave action, colors, detailed lines that really show what the ocean looks like. And then I can do, some cloud work up here. Okay. And now I want to put a boat in there. Do I put it right down in the middle? Sometimes we think yes, because when you frame a picture of somebody, you put them right in the middle to showcase them. Maybe it's on your wall. But when we want our eye drawn into a photo, a picture, a painting, a drawing, then we want to put it on a third line. So let's say my cloud is over here. You notice I put it on one of the third lines. See how it, and you could even do it a little lower to intersect that line. So where do I want my boat? Well, I could do it here too if I wanted to, but I'm going to balance this out, and maybe I'm going to put it right here. And notice the mast here is right on that third line, and maybe the hull of my boat, or where it hits the water, is on this third of this line. So you'll see that it's third, third, and what that does is it will automatically draw your eye into a picture, and then you'll move around the picture and you'll see it. That is the power of 3. And I notice I only have one boat, right? But if I wanted to do more boats, I could do a cluster of them, maybe over here, a little bit smaller. I can push them back a little bit. And I'm still going to do them on the third line. Maybe they're right close to each other. So now I have 2 boats over here. How many is that? 3. 1, 2, 3, right? I can be done. But what if I want more? What if it's a ramada or something like that? You could do more, but make sure that it's an odd number. You could do 7, you could do 5, you could do 13. I just like to keep odds, and I like to make sure that everything is on a third line. It's always going to help draw your eye into it. And this really is the rule of thumb for composition. Composition for a wall, composition for a flower garden. So those are the things that we're going to work on today. We're going to talk about our power of 3 when we set up our pictures. We're also going to make sure we're working on our edges and not outlines. We're making sure that our hand is nice and free and it moves, that our pencil is nice and light. Obviously, I'm going a little darker so that you can see it very well. But I want you to, when you do it, I want you to go super, super light so that you can barely see it. And why do I want you to go super light? Well, I always give myself reference lines, and you'll see that especially next week when we do the face. I always give myself some reference lines. Maybe these are my reference lines. If I put those in nice and dark, and I've got this beautiful sunset picture, and I've got this drawing, and I love it, and it's so beautiful, and then I go in and I try to erase that line, my reference line, or any line that I don't want, you can see how hard that is to erase. And so the lighter you go, the more loose you can actually be. So you can, let's just draw another can right here, just for a reference, right? So notice I'm using my whole arm to give me that basic shape, nice and light. I'm coming down, nice and light, nice and light. And then, I mean, I won't even get any outlines anyway, but then it gives me the chance to find the line I want. It's nice and light, and I can find the line that I want to keep, and everything just fades right on back. So those are a couple things that we're going to be working on as we continue today. Okay. So let's work a little bit on some landscaping today. We're going to, let me just show you what we're going to work on in a minute, but I'm going to show you some. So we're going to be drawing this beautiful seashell today. I put it on black so you could really, really see it. I might bring the camera up just a little bit more in just a minute so that you can really get some good, you can see it really well. But before we do that, let's just do a couple of landscapes. And here's where I want you to be you. I want you to just in your mind come up with something that you like. We're going to practice using our power of 3. We're also going to practice being nice and light, and we're going to jump into contour lines that give shape to things. First, we start off with basic shapes. We always do that. How do I make it that shape though? And those come from contour lines, and then we can get down into detail lines. So I'm going to give so take a nice, clean, fresh sheet of paper, whatever you have, and I'm just going to draw one here. This is my clean, fresh sheet of paper.
Jamie, there's a question from someone that wants to know if they should be starting to draw. So this is when.
Yes, jump right in.
Okay.
I want you to, anytime that I'm drawing anything in any of the classes, as I'm giving a tutorial, get your hand on a pencil and maybe do the same things I'm doing so that you can really start to feel and loosen up. That's a really good question. Thanks for asking. But yes, I want everybody to be drawing with me the whole time I talk. And this being a Zoom meeting, which is quite, an interesting way to approach things. Typically when I'm in an art class, I'll give direction. I'll say, hey, everybody, we're going to draw this today. And I'll give some instruction, and then I let them go for it, and without a lot of talking. And then I'll wander around and check on people and talk to them. So on a Zoom, I think maybe my problem is I feel like I have to fill this time with my voice. So maybe I just need to stop every now and then. But I want you to get your hand on a pencil doing all of these, even if it was that can from that other picture. Draw it all, even the sailboats, so yes, draw with me. Okay, so I have my first piece of paper here. Now, if you would like to, you can do your little reference lines, and I'm putting them here. You can barely see them. You should barely be able to see them from where you are. Okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to measure this. If I wanted to, I could, but I'm not. I just know that this is a third, this is a third, and I'm going to eyeball it. Okay, and you do not have to put these reference lines in if you're comfortable with that. But if you want to, go ahead. Just make sure they're super light so you can erase them. Okay. And this is where we're going to come in with some landscaping. And what I want to do is I want to make sure wherever I'm putting anything, of course, it follows my third. And this is where you, at this point, can do anything you want to do. You can follow me exactly, or you can be experimental and draw whatever you like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do a rolling hill, and it's going to come right here where it starts, and it's just going to kind of move up. Right? It's going to move up. Notice most of it is down here on this third. Okay. And maybe what I want to do is I want to do another rolling hill. And if I did this, right down here in the middle, notice how everything is kind of lining up in the middle here. And that again is not where I want my focus to be. So I don't want it necessarily to come and meet in the middle. I don't want anything to intersect right there in the middle. Okay. So making sure that if you're going to add more landscaping, that you just make sure that it's off. Okay. Off somewhere right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some mountains in the background. And notice they're going to kind of line up right above that third line. Okay. And I'm going nice and lightly. Then about right here is where I'm going to put some trees. And notice how I'm just sketching in some of this lovely, maybe where the trees are. Okay. And then I can come down here and I can put a grove maybe right here. Somewhere in here. Okay. So now I have some lines. I have my horizon line, which is about right here. I have some mountain range in the back here. I have some movement that comes here, and I have some movement that comes here. And then I have, and those are mostly horizontal lines. So to break up the picture, I'm going to add in some vertical lines. And these vertical lines are, are going to be, again, here's a third, here's a third. And this is where I can now start to put in some contour lines. Okay, so maybe back here is a field. And I am going to take my lines and I'm going to come down. They come down to this valley right here. They kind of are coming down this way. See that? I'm going to go a little darker so you can see what I'm doing. You see how loose I'm being? And they have this contour line, so it takes you back, right? So what about this one here? Well, maybe we can do some contour lines here too, right? The contour lines are going to tell us a story, right? And this is going to show me where the land lays. Okay, now we have some mountains in the background. Are they going to lay like this? Are they going to lay like this? Well, mostly not. They're a little bit jaggedy, so I can come in here and do some contour line work on some of my mountain ranges, right? And I'm just giving them a story. Okay, I'm using lines to tell a story, and that story is, oh, these mountains are far away, so there's not a lot of detail, and they are raggedy. They're a mountain, right? It's not hills, it's not flowing hills. So I want some jaggeds on them, and it tells a story, and it comes this way. I know that I have to climb the mountain that way. So wherever my contour lines are, wherever my lines end up, it's telling a story. Okay. And then I put some of these vertical lines in to tell a story as well. And that there's a grove of trees there, and there's a grove of trees. So when we're doing a third, we also have three things that we see in a landscape. And that is a background, a middle, and a foreground. Okay? 3, again. This is a beautiful magic number. And if this were a painting class and not a drawing class, whenever I paint something, if let's say I'm painting a tree here, I'm being a Bob Ross and I'm putting in a little happy tree and I'm putting it here, I would add 3 colors to that tree, green. I would add a dark green, I'd add a light green, and I'd add a middle green, right? 3 colors to make the depth of that tree show up. And you can still do that with a pencil. Make sure it has a dark side, middle, and get your values in there. So now you can come in here, and if you wanted to, you can make these nice tall pine trees. And notice these are contour lines as well. How does a tree grow? Well, if I'm down here, right, and well, let's just do a tree here. There's a couple different kinds of trees, right? So if it's a pine tree, do I draw it like this? it kind of has the shape of a pine tree, right? You look at that and you think, oh, I know that's a pine tree. But when I'm doing nice and tall ones here, I'm thinking about the contour lines. I'm thinking about which direction do the needles lay? Which direction do the leaves, the branches, where do they lay? So here's a different tree completely. Come down here, and if I did this tree, well, you can see immediately from these lines that I'm using, they're following the same direction, right? You can see immediately what kind of tree I have just drawn. Okay, so these contour lines that tell the story are crucial to our telling the story, are telling what our picture, where things lay. Do they lay in the background? Not a lot of lines. Middle ground, more lines. Foreground, lots of lines, lots of detail, bigger lines, you can see them closer, okay? So each one of these, 1, 2, 3, is going to have a different kind of line. And they're also going to have a different color value. So maybe here, I'm just going to shade these in a little bit. Not a lot of lines, not a lot of detail, but every line that I have there tells a story. And I can come in here and I can smoosh it in. Oh, that's a word, right? Whatever. Okay. And then I can come in here and I can do more lines. These palm trees, I wish. I want to be somewhere where there's palm trees. Anybody else in the mood to go somewhere where there's palm trees? I know that because this is the middle ground, I want to push these trees back a little bit. So the lines are going to be less detailed, but they're still going to have to fall in a direction to tell the right story. They obviously would not be up, right? It would not be that. They would be down, okay? And here as well, we can start adding our 3 shades. Okay, so maybe some darker in here to really push some of these back. Some pieces that are dark. Notice I've got my pencil on the side now as I'm shading. Right? And then I'm going to give it a landing. Notice that this landing is not a line. Okay? If I made this a crisp line right down here, if I made these mountain peaks, if my mountain peak looked like this, that all of a sudden makes it cartoony. Okay? So versus outline versus edges. Again, how do I get rid of those outlines? I just use my shading, and now I have edges, and it looks realistic, right? Whenever you're drawing anything, a practice sheet, you could have gone and you could have gotten your shoes from your closet. You can put them in the table right in front of you, and you can start drawing that. Anytime you do that, think about your edges versus your lines, your outlining, okay? And I can still see a lot of that outline. So I'm just gonna have to push a little harder until I don't see that outline. I see, oh, see that bug? I wish it would go away. Sorry, everybody. I'm allergic too, so that's why I'm a little freaked out. Sorry. Just go away. Yeah, I'm being Zoom photo bombed by a bee. That's ridiculous. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about these trees. Nice and close to us. Maybe we can see more detail. So let's do that. I got a palm tree in the way though. Maybe I'll erase this palm tree right here. Okay. And this tree, I can maybe see a little bit more of its bark. And so now notice how all of a sudden I switched from this or this to tight. So I can get some really good detail on that tree that I can see a little closer. Okay. I want you to just do that. I'm not going to talk for a minute. I'm going to actually do another one down here. And I want you you can flip the paper over. You can continue on this one. I want you to just practice this and feel how it works. And I'm going to do another one. So if you want to be done with that and you want to flip it over and try again, let's do it. So we're going to spend a few minutes on some of these. There's one thing I wanted to tell you before I shut up, and that is the balance between light and dark in a picture. Notice how I've got some dark areas up here in the mountains, right? And it's balanced by this dark area here, which is balanced by this, which I will have more trees, which will be dark. Notice how they flow from one space to another. If they're all dark, you lose it. If they're all light, you lose it. So you look at it, the spaces of composition, and you say, where are my dark and where is my light? Okay. And here is something very important that I don't want you, and your brain works this way, and it will continue to work this way. That is what it's for. Your brain will line everything up for you. You've been taught since you were maybe 2 or 3 how to line up your 1s and your 2s and your 3s and your A's and your B's and your C's. And what we find is that whenever we're doing this, where we have to be a little bit more free and random, we end up, everything looks exactly the same. Okay, so if you're doing a set of trees in this next drawing, or you're continuing on here, I want you to just take a look at your trees. Are they all the same size? That's a no-no. Are they all the same width apart? That's a no-no. Okay, so, and you know what, if you've done that, it's okay. That means your brain works. Okay, that makes it so that you know how to get dressed in the morning and how to brush your teeth and how to get to work in a car. Okay, that is important. So when we're doing art, we have to take our brain and we have to say, hey, stop thinking for a minute. I'm in charge. Okay, and I want to do this a little bit more random, because that's what life is about. It's a little bit more random when I'm painting trees or drawing trees. So if you've already done this and you're noticing, oh, my mountains all look the same, because I've seen that. All the mountains look exactly the same. That's our brain working. Okay. If you have that on this picture, don't worry about it. This is what you're going to do. You're going to fix it, because the first way to fix it is by recognizing it. And hopefully you've recognized, oh, all those trees look exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little bit taller. Now, what if I went every 4th and made the 4th one taller? Then I just have a beautiful fence line. Okay, so you have to really randomize this. Okay, and you will do this. I laugh because even I fall prey to this every time. It's like, oh, I got to be a little bit more random. So put another one right there, nice and tight. Put a really tall one right next to a really teeny one. Okay, and I want you, and some of them may be really fluffy. Okay, and some of them may be skinny and tall. Okay, so when you're doing this right now, I want you to check that. Check your 3s first. Is everything lining up on the 3s? Do I have a back, middle, or foreground? Do I have some darks and mediums and lights? Do I have randomness? Do I have odds? Do I have 4 exact trees here? Do I have 5 trees that are all completely different, okay, overlapped, okay? That is what I'm looking for. And it doesn't matter what kind of artist you are, all of those matter. And if you can start thinking about those, you can draw anything and you know, look beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to do one more down here and I'm not going to talk. You guys get to just explore. Jeanette, how much time do we have? Just so I know.
It's 1:37 right now, so about
1:30?
Yes, it's 1:37, about 45 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. We leave the last 15 minutes open to anybody who wants to share their picture. We take it off recording, and then if you want to share your picture and what you've drawn, whether it be one of these or what we're going to do next. So just be aware. I'd love to see what you have. I'd love to show the class. That's what I do when I'm in a classroom. Share your work. Be confident in it. Okay. So she's going to give me a thumbs up, or she's going to give me a heads up when it's when I've got 15 more minutes, and then we'll stop recording, and then people can share what they have. B is back. Darn it. If you're drawing quite heavily like I am, well, I already need to sharpen my pencil, right? So make sure you have a couple handy. Also, just a kind of a plug for these art pencils. They don't cost a lot, and they're really fun to have around, and I'll tell you why. because if you have a heavy hand, which most people do, by the way, in that when you draw something, it comes out really dark, right? It's really, it is a practice to go lightly. That's a practice that you can hone that skill the more you draw. But if you're not used to drawing, or you don't draw as much, you might still be a little heavy-handed, which is okay. But if you're heavy-handed, then when you buy a set of these pencils, they usually come from H's to middle to bold to all of your B's. So it'll have like a 5H and a 4H and a 3H, 2H, and then you'll get an H, and then you'll get an HB, which is the middle of the road, and then you'll get a 2B and a 4B and a 6B and an 8B, and the H stands for hard. And that hard lead, you have to push super hard to get it to be dark, which is a tool. So get some of these pencils and get yourself a 4H pencil. And I'm not talking about growing vegetables and, you know, raising cattle or anything like that. 4 as in the hardness level of it. And that's pretty high, 4H. And that will do the job for you. You don't have to press as hard if you have the right tool. So even if you do press hard and you are heavy-handed, if you get yourself a tool like a 4H pencil, it'll still come out really light, which is perfect. I love that you can get tools to make you a better artist, okay? And then if you then you want to really get in here and do some darks, and without having to press really, really hard because you're practicing keeping a light hand, then get yourself a 4B, which is a bolder pencil. And I'm just very lightly drawing here. And what's it doing? It's going on pretty dark, right? So get yourself some good pencils. It's inexpensive. Get yourself a drawing pad, a really good kneaded eraser, a set of these pencils, and usually these come with a kneaded eraser. You can get the pack with these, a kneaded eraser, and also blendy tools, and what is that thing? A sharpener. And then boom, you have it all. And then it won't even set you back $20. It won't even set you back that. So if you like drawing, go do it. Okay. So how do I get rid of these lines? I've got some lines here. I don't want it to be lines, so I'm going to give it some edges by shading. I'm going to say that my light source comes from here. That'll always help. Okay. I've got these are contour lines, even if they're kind of just drawn in there. It shows me the water moves this way. These lines right here show me that this structure right here is a cylinder. Okay. These lines right here follow the lay of the land. And I even have some lines in here that show me that's made out of, this is like made out of a brick or rock wall. Okay. All these detailed lines are going to show me something. Okay. And I've put it on the third. Notice this is third, this is a third, that's on a third. And I've got some dark versus some light space. Okay. So I want you to practice some of these. Get yourself, you know what's a perfect tool when you want to practice landscaping? Calendars. I use those all the time in my art class. We just go get calendars of landscapes, and we look at the contour lines, and we look at the background versus the middle ground, foreground, and you can practice drawing those. Those are perfect inspiration pieces if you're drawing, and even when you're painting. Okay, so let's move on. We've got about half an hour, okay? And you're looking at this like, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to draw that in a half an hour? Yeah, we're gonna. Okay, we're gonna tackle this in a half an hour, because what we're gonna do is take it apart like a puzzle, like we talked about last week. Okay, we're gonna look for shapes, okay? We're gonna look for basic shapes. We're gonna look for lines that intersect, and we're gonna tackle this. So you're good, you're gonna be good. So the first one that I noticed, okay, is I'm gonna just put my pencil there, and here is a lovely little what? Everybody knows what that shape is. That's a triangle. Notice it's going off in this direction. Okay, So I'm going to come down here, nice and lightly. And I can put in, that's a 4B. I do not want a 4B because I can't go light with that. It's too dark still. This is where my H pencil comes in handy. But you know what? I don't have an H pencil with me. I have a 2B though. So I'm going to just, see, I want you to notice this falls on a line. So if you want to, you can do this. You can do that, right? Okay, so I'm kind of getting it the right direction. And it's got a bump there. I can add that now, or I can add it later, all right? And it ends in this curve. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to curve it. So the end of my triangle has this little curve, and then it's going to kind of do this little flip. See this little cute little flip? So I'm going to just curve it, and we'll flip it. Okay. And now I've got this shape right here. Let's even just take a look at this line right here. Okay. I put my pencil here, and there is a negative space of the same kind of, it's like a elongated triangle, right? You can also look at negative spaces. Do you see, everybody, what I mean by that? This black area right here is the shape of a triangle, okay? And it is 2/3, and this is 1/3, okay? So I'm using measurements as well. I'm seeing where lines intersect. So right down here, I've got that, and I know about 2/3 of that, it goes to about right here. There is this triangle shape, okay? And again, I'm drawing lightly. Maybe I should draw a little darker so you guys can see what I'm doing. But yeah, I think I will. I'll just draw a little darker. Right, here's my first triangle. And notice you can just draw the triangle first. We can get into all those contour lines in a minute. This is just laying it out. This is like you sitting down with a puzzle and saying, okay, where are all my edge pieces? Where are all my corners? Okay, where's my water pieces? Where's my sky pieces? Where's my animal pieces? Anything that helps you set this up. That's what we're looking for. Okay, and then I know that there's this this bump here. And I know that it comes and curves around. And notice how loose I'm being with my pencil. I've got it right here. I've got it here. I'm not tight in. I'm back a little bit. I'm enjoying myself. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I have dirty fingers, which is awesome because that means I'm doing art. Okay, and so now I have this negative space down here, and it's about 2/3 versus 1/3. And I can just take that up. And then I've got this another little tail end here, and I can do that. So now what we have is let's just say we have this curvy line, okay? And if you want to, right now, we can just draw a line straight from that top corner straight down to that tip. And notice it just goes just like a zipper slide right on down, okay? So I can take from this point here to, and let's pull this up just a little bit, but you'll notice that that goes straight down just like that. Okay, and that's just a guideline, right? Because we know it does other things in there, and we'll get to that, okay? But we're just taking apart the shapes. So now right here in the middle of all this, what do we have? We have this beautiful inner part of the shell. And this is kind of the shape of a, oh my goodness, everybody knows, like an oval, right? And it's, if you notice, it's about this here and about this here. So maybe one little bit here and two of those here. So I'm just spacing myself. I'm just saying, okay, that's one. And starting here, that's one, that's two. So this is double that size. So that gives me a reference on where my oval will go. Measurements, okay? We pick it apart, anything, just pick it apart. Okay, and now let's just take this edge and let's just follow this curve along the lines. And it's a seashell. And what did I say last week? I said, and for those of you that are new, nobody who's looking at this, once you've finished drawing it, knows what your reference was. They don't see this unless they're watching this with you. But then when you say goodbye to me today, I'm going to take this down and nobody's going to see a reference. So they're not going to know if this line goes like this. They're not, right? You're going to have fun with the seashell, right? If it's a curvy line that you want like that, you go right ahead and do it, okay? So don't feel like you have to be super exact here. This is a free sketch, okay? We want to get the spaces down. That's why we're measuring. But when it comes to this line work right here, see how it kind of floats up a little bit? And I've got a little dip here. And then it's kind of a wobbly line down here because it's a seashell. They have wobbly lines. And then I'm just going to wobble it all the way down to there. Wow. Look what you guys just did. What did you guys just do? You made a seashell. Now you're like, wait, that doesn't look like a seashell yet. Okay, well, let's just connect our lines then. Okay, so now we can come and we can take this line and we can wobble it all the way down there. And we're going to take this line and we're going to take it up and it's going to wobble down here too. Okay, you can erase as you go or you can erase later. No problems. Okay. Now that's the basic shape of this. Outlines, puzzle pieces, corners, sides. Very, very simple. Triangles, ovals, negative spaces, slippery slides, wobbly lines. Have fun with it. Now is the time we get to have fun with contour lines, okay? Because if I started doing this, and this could be a brain thing, your brain says, I know that seashells have lines on them. So you can say, okay, well, I'm going to put some lines on this seashell. Do those lines look right if I start doing this? No, they don't. That would be like me putting, like I draw a bowl here, right? And then all the lines go crazy, okay? So what we're trying to do here is I've shown you, like, I have a picture here and they have some really good detailed contour lines in there. And so we're going to start following those contour lines. I'm going to start right up here in this corner. Okay. I'm going to still go nice and slow. I know that this right here is a curvy line because it's a shape of the inside of this shell. And this line tells a story. It tells me that there is a tip inside of there, okay? And there's a couple of them. Now, here we can get again into all my lines look exactly the same. And that right there, folks, is a no-no, okay? Tell your brain, hold on, we're not doing that, right? This is not our ABCs. This is not 1, 2, 3s. This is Mother Earth giving us a beautiful seashell that has random lines, even though they're contoured, okay? So now I can take this and I can kind of wobble this a little bit, but most of my lines stem here and they now come up and they follow through. You can go slow at this, okay? And I can see a couple of lines in there, right? And I'm going to use another line to help me get those lines by drawing 2 lines here. From this center to here, you'll notice that now it's kind of got ridges, okay? So you use any line you need to get you where you need to go. And then these lines are close together, and I have like a slew of them right here. And then I come up a little bit and there's another little ridge. Notice how I tightened back up on my pencil? It's because I'm now drawing some detail lines, okay? Okay. Now, I am going to start shading a little bit. Just because I'm here and I have some lines, why not, okay? I can get rid of some of these lines I want to, and come in here and erase them. And I wanted to show you how you do this, where you make edges, not outlines. It's not a cartoon, it's not SpongeBob SquarePants. This is a beautiful seashell that, in my light source, let's say my light source is right here, right? So I know that this right here is going to have a little bit more light on it, and down here is going to be a little darker. And I'm trying to get rid of those lines with shading. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to kind of just shade some of those detailed lines a little bit. Now it does have a ridge here, just a little bit of one. So you can come in here following that line, and you can shade that too. And then this right here is the edge of this. You can come in here and shade that as well. When I shade, look how I put it. My pencil's now here. It's a lot harder to get that when it's a tip. So I want you to notice that as I'm drawing, what happens to my pencil? Where does my hand go? And I want you to get used to that feel. Okay. And this is where my cute little blendy tool, if I have one, comes in handy. I can now start getting into those little pockets. And shading. Getting rid of that outline. Okay, and I can hold it just like my pencil, nice and smooth. Now, if I don't have one of these, oh, look at that. I got one of these. And if you don't have one of those, where to go? I have a tissue paper. I mean, I have a Kleenex, right? I'd say you could use a square toilet paper, but how dare I, right? We don't want to do that. And notice, oh my gosh, okay, so I've just shaded all that in. What if I want to clean up some spaces? What if I want some highlights? What if I want to, guess what, I can still erase. And look, I can come in here and I can give that some highlight. Okay, very simple. Okay, so now we're going to do this one as well. Okay, and I'm going to just follow. I want you to, I have a couple of curves up in here. Okay, so I'm going to follow those around. I'm going to say, okay, I've got a curve that comes up here and it just comes all the way down. So I'm going to just follow that around. And I've got another one of those. I'm going to give that contour line the shape of my, and it actually just comes right to here, okay? Because then everything builds off of this one. So they actually, right here, this here, they're all coming this way now. Can you see that? And these are all these beautiful contour lines. So I've got a couple more in here that come down to that spot. And then a couple here. And then I'm just looking at those lines and I'm just sketching them in. Just like that. Okay, now those aren't the only lines. In fact, those are very subtle lines. You have to really look at that to get those subtle lines, okay? But this again is, when you're doing a puzzle, you're not just saying, oh, I know exactly where that goes. You're really looking. You're looking at that piece and you're trying to figure out, well, which way is it oriented? Which way, what colors does it have in it, right? I want you to take the same approach to this, where you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, what line do I have there? Go get yourself a leaf outside today, a beautiful leaf, and I want you to just put it in front of you. And I want you to see where the veins run. And I want you to see what the contour lines are. That is a really good practice because it's just a leaf. And then along with that, get yourself a stick and a leaf and a rock. Those are perfect, perfect practice pieces. And if you do them right, they look amazing. Okay. So now I'm going to come and I'm going to start putting in some of these other lines. And notice these lines kind of move when it comes to one of these lines. Like, okay, kind of moves a little bit, right? Can you see that? I hope you can. Here, maybe I'll go a little darker so you can see. So when it comes to one of these lines right here, it follows the curve, okay? And some of these are nice and tight in here. This one's got like it's got like 2 or 3 lines at a time. And they all kind of follow that same way. And then it comes and there's a break. And then there's another line. Another line section. And notice these lines are crucial to get those lines where they need to go. So put the lines in there that need to go in there so that you can get them. So now they start coming around this way. You see how, oh, now these lines are going to kind of start moving this direction. Notice that. I want you to notice it. And if it helps, you can put your pencil here. So this one kind of moves down this direction, but when I'm here, it starts moving this direction. Okay, use your tools in front of you to help you map out how those lines are starting to be drawn, and it helps. And then you can come down here and you can say, oh, look, I'm doing all of this. Oh, I should have been moving them that way. And again, who's going to see this except for you when it's all done? Well, who's going to see this one? Nobody. You get to see it right now, but when this is over, you don't get to see this, right? So nobody's going to know what your reference was. And I'm just now kind of just putting in some lines. I don't even have to really put those in a lot if I don't want to. And those right here are a lot darker than I really want you to put them. And that's mostly so that you can see what I'm doing, okay? And then let's do our last set of lines, which are our very dramatic lines. And they're the lines that are right in here, right? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your pencil and I want you to notice they all kind of come from the middle of that. So right down here is kind of the spot, right? So they're all, so if you give yourself like a bullseye right here, all those lines are going to come straight to that point. And if you need to, oh my goodness, you can do this, right? What if I just did this? What if I got myself a hard edge, making sure they all kind of come to that area? And you see how I'm moving it right to there? These are perspective lines. That is a whole nother ball game. And we're not going to do that in this series, but I wanted to give you kind of just a reference on, you know, these contour lines that come from an epicenter, that come from a focus point. Okay, now you see how all those travel towards that same area. It draws you in to that picture. Okay, and then this is where you get to have fun, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this is where you can say, okay, I've got this nice white area right here, so I'm going to make sure that it stays nice and white. Okay, this is my dark area, and I know that all of those lines come straight out. So I'm just gonna give me this dark space right here. Okay, and and it's just got a bunch of lines, but I'm making sure that all those lines follow what I did already. Right. And that's gonna give you beautiful in-depth, taking you right into that seashell. Okay, And then there's a little bit of shading in here. And then there's just a little bit of detail lines coming around here. But I have a line here still and I don't like it. So you can erase it, right? And then you can shade a little bit. Okay. And then I'm gonna look now. And sometimes what I do is I back up or hold my picture way out in front of me. Like I'll say, oh, okay, I need to take a look at it. And instead of having it super close, I take it far away so that I can really get perspective. I'll close one eye and focus a little bit. And I'm gonna try to pick out the dark spots versus the light spots, okay? So I know this is super dark in here, okay? And I know that this was dark here and I didn't get enough dark in here. So I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna shade the same direction I did my contour lines. Don't forget that. You don't wanna be scribbling everywhere, right? And look, I'm just using my pencil. I'm just using my finger. Okay. And then I see some dark areas in here. So I'm gonna put them in there. I'm just gonna do like an initial dark spot right there. There's also kind of a dark spot here and it runs along this line. I'm shading the same exact direction as my contour lines. And now I see some like lines of darkness. Right in here is a dark spot. And I want that to be dark right up against this to make it lighter. There's a dark spot right here and it has lines that come down from it. Okay. I'm following those lines as I shade. So shade along those lines and it'll get rid of those lines for you. Okay, there's some lines that need to be in there. This is a definite line. I see all the way down. These are definite lines. And if that is part of the picture, then go and draw those definite lines, okay? But when it's got an edge piece, you see how it's outlined down here? It's got an outline. It's looking like a cartoon. How do I get rid of that? Well, this is kind of light down here a little bit. So I can shade up here a little bit, right? But right underneath here, I'm gonna just shade in my negative space. Remember, this is not a floating seashell. A floating seashell, no, we're not doing a floating seashell. So you can give it a sandy beach even, like I'm gonna give it a landing space, right? I found it laying on the sand. And this will be a good time if you have it. If you don't worry, just press a little darker. I'll pick up my 4B to make this a lot easier. I'm gonna come in here with my finger. I can come in with my blendy tool. I can come in with a tissue paper. Look at that, that's fast work, right? And it has residual on it, so you can always move it up. Now, I'm doing this on an easel. You're probably on a paper, and your hand right here is probably nice and black right now. Okay, right on the side there. So if you're starting to do some detail work and you don't want to get that black everywhere, get yourself just a piece of paper and you can start coming underneath here. And then you're making this dirty and not this dirty, okay? And then remembering that always, 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 especially with pencil, you can come in with an eraser and get yourself some highlights, making sure that the spots that you want light, you make light. Okay, now I'm going to let you continue on that for just a minute, and I'm going to talk one more time about my thirds. We just took this and we just put it down here, but let's say we wanted to really create something with this, right? So you have a piece of paper. Okay, maybe this is your piece of paper right here, right? And it seems like it's smack dab in the middle and it takes up the whole space. Well, what could you do about that so that you are still on your thirds? Well, this line, right, wherever it's landed on, could be on a third, right? I have taken pieces of paper where I've drawn something in the middle and I look at it and I'm like, oh, whoops, it's in the middle. You know what I'll do? I'll just hack off the part of the paper that I don't want. You can use a pair of these or something and just cut off the paper. Like if it's too much in the middle, you could cut it super close to this edge right here and leave this so that now the paper looks like that. Okay, so it's off center a little bit. Okay, same with the bottom. You could cut it really close down here. So now it would look like this. Right, and it's off center, and then you've still got that on a third. Okay, so those are the things I want you to just think about as even if you go outside today, like I said, or sometime this week, and you get yourself a beautiful leaf or a stick. I want you to place it on your paper thinking of your thirds. It always makes a better composition, okay? And I'm just gonna come in here and just kind of work on some detail. Notice what the dark does. It makes it pop. Don't get wimpy on me now. Don't get wimpy on me. Push hard, get some darks in there. I know a lot of people get nervous about that. Be confident, say, oh no, I need some dark in there. And get some dark. Just be confident. Okay. Even my shading follows those lines.
Jamie, it's 2:15.
Perfect. I think we're about done. Now, if you didn't get finished, that's okay. You know what I did? I went to Google Images. Okay. Go to Google Images and type in Seashell, and you will come across this one. Okay. If you want to do more detail on this. If not, we've already kind of gone over the shapes, so you're good to go. And so you can play with this. I want you to play with it by getting some dark colors in there, some light colors in there, some shading in there, making sure you follow your contour lines. Okay? And I want you to keep practicing this. I want you to find yourself something to draw, your shoes, your hairbrush, a tin can, a leaf, a rock, and follow along those contour lines. Okay? I love even this one really quick. This is my last bit of advice. Take something that doesn't have contour lines. This obviously does. Take something like a pitcher of water, right? Or a bowl, or even a pot that does not have any contour lines. And I want you to put those contour lines in there to show the story, to tell the story, the space, okay? So use these lines even on something that you don't have, just so you can get the flow of it, so it can tell the story and give you the shape of something. I have had a fun time teaching you this today. Hopefully you've learned something, or you're just getting better at something you already knew. And I will see you definitely next week, and we're going to work on the face. Bring a photo if you want, so that you can practice on that. Same instruments, we're just going to use the pencil eraser, some blendy tools, those kind of things. And now they're going to take off the recording, and if anybody wants to share, I'd love to see them. Thank you, everybody.